Hello, and welcome to another episode of Text Appeal Lessons on the Body, Mind, and Beyond. First of all, I want to say Happy Father's Day to any of you paternal legends out there. I really hope you enjoy a day with your family. Today's episode will be short and sweet and will act as a reminder to evaluate the quality of your life from a few different angles. This one is going to be more of a conversation with myself that I hope you can find useful, in the sense that as I ask myself these questions, maybe you realize that the same questions might be important to consider in your own life. Regardless of your age, education level, and really anything else about you, this one should, in theory, speak to your humanness, which is something that we all share. Whenever I'm looking to get an episode out that is a little bit more digestible and accessible, they will be more like this, so keep an eye out if this style is more your thing. Thank you for tuning in. This is Text Appeal, and I am your host, Travis Villalpando. To kick off today's discussion, I first want to frame your life as a constant series of decisions that you make, whether you realize it or not. I also want to remind you that no matter how tiny the decisions that you make are, the rest of your life that comes after any particular decision is certainly different because of it. Now, the consequences of making big, drastic changes in your life are going to obviously have a bigger effect, but even those micro decisions have what can be called where the butterfly flaps its wings here in Colorado, and this can cause a tornado somewhere in, let's say, Australia. This is all to say that the action of a relatively small creature can create a domino effect that results in something catastrophic, or maybe on the more optimistic side, something magnificent. Now, people at any moment are just like that butterfly, and the quality of your future life, and even the quality of many other people's lives around you, can be greatly affected by what kind of causality you add to the world. Okay, so this could be sort of overwhelming for some people, and I want to make it clear that it is not my intention to make you stress whether you should put your left or right sock on first, or to really overstress any other trivial decisions that you make in your life. But I do want you to think about just how consequential your decisions are on many levels. And upon doing this, you might realize that when you make yourself aware that your decisions have an impact on your future self and others, that you become somewhat more motivated to try and make better decisions, or at least I would hope so. Defining better and worse is fairly easy when we relate these terms to a relative target. It is pretty easy to see that if you are aiming at running a mile as fast as possible, then running it in under 6 minutes is better than running it any slower than this. But if you change the goal, this logic can get flipped on its head, where you might say it is better for the sake of my recovery that I run a little slower today, and I instead focus on my form, breathing, and ability to pace myself for a different set of gains. Okay, so creating a target can help us understand what we mean by better and worse, or maybe good and bad, and maybe even right and wrong. But when looking at our entire life from a more holistic perspective, how do we not fall into the trap of defining what it means to be a good person, where we might run circles around this topic in complete futility, because there is always some technical definition and radical interpretation that will throw a wrench in this conversation? The first solution is to frame a goal or a target, because as I already said, this is where definitions for words become useful and sensible. Here is my offer for an aim that you can make in your life, especially if you're someone looking for help in that area. I suggest that you aim to make your life as medicinal as possible, when and where you can. Medicinal refers to anything that has healing properties, and in an entropic world, always tending towards disorder and chaos, I think it is important to be a soldier of light in a world bent on darkness. I'm using light as a metaphor for goodness here, and we could also think of light as a metaphor for not only goodness, but also order and healing. So, using this metaphor, I think you can infer the meaning of darkness based on what I've given you. If medicinal refers to healing and regeneration, then the word toxic works well to convey something harmful or destructive. I like this dichotomy, and I now want to use it to ask myself a series of questions revolving the 5 most important dimensions of my life. I made this list of dimensions a while back when considering my own priorities, and this method of categorizing my life has been useful in many ways since. The 5 most important parts of my life, in no particular order, are number 1, health. This dimension captures both my physical and mental health. Number 2 is going to be career or life pursuit. I characterize this second dimension by using the term work-play balance. A lot of us have heard of this, and really it's so that I can always evaluate, is my career and my life pursuit and my deepest ambitions, do they align well with what I like to do, at least to the degree that I don't have a miserable existence, where my miserable existence leaks into the rest of my life. Number 3, I have spirituality, philosophy, or religion. I really think it's important that we derive our moral values from somewhere, and there's plenty of ancient traditions or emerging sciences in these fields, and I simply recommend that you find out for yourself where you derive your moral values from. Number 4 is family and friends. I think that this is a really important dimension because these are the most important social relationships for most of us. Number 5, I have romantic relationship. This is characterized by the woman and the family that I will one day hypothetically marry into. Of course, you can think about these dimensions differently in your own life, but I bet this model captures many of the most important aspects of your life as well. Just to clarify, I put romantic relationship as a separate domain because your exclusive partner can really become integral to every other domain in a unique way because the unification of 2 people through something like marriage is so significant that they almost become a part of you and vice versa. All these other domains in your individual life become tightly interwoven with a serious romantic partner, so it seemed appropriate to create a dimension for this portion of my life. Okay, so now that I have identified that my aim is to be a source of medicine, and this would also mean that I want to receive medicinal energy, so to speak, from these parts of my life, then we can set up a couple questions to evaluate my life based on these dimensions. Let's take health, the first dimension I mentioned, as a good example. In general, are my habits revolving exercise, sleep, relaxation, and diet medicinal or toxic? Do I exercise enough? Do I get enough quality sleep on a regular basis? Do I de-stress via meditation, prayer, or some other method of relaxation and mindfulness? Does the food I eat have the properties of toxicity or medicine relative to my health and fitness ideals? So with these questions, we can generalize and say, well, my sleep is pretty medicinal, but I must admit, I feel like I need to exercise more regularly. This allows you to compartmentalize the different domains of health, and you can think about it in more specific or general terms as needed. Now, I would like you to apply a similar investigation to the other domains of your life, and in doing so, you might even be frightened to see just how toxic these parts of your life can be. If you feel like the world is your medicine and that you positively contribute, well, then this episode is not necessarily for you, but I still imagine a reevaluation is helpful. So next, I will simply ask a bunch of questions, and you can answer them or not. But I encourage you to do so, because solutions are really impossible if problems are never identified in the first place. Is your personality generally toxic or medicinal? Do you find yourself engaging in toxic or medicinal sexual and romantic relationships? Are the substances you put in your body toxic or medicinal? Is your pattern of thinking generally characterized by toxicity or medicine when thinking about your own self-worth? Do you attach your sense of self-worth to a career pursuit? And does this serve you in a way where this career pursuit is toxic or medicinal? Do you consume toxic or medicinal social media content on a regular basis? And lastly, do you surround yourself with people who you believe are toxic or medicinal, which may imply that you are more or less toxic based on this evaluation? Okay, so there it is, a bunch of questions that should encourage some introspection. I also want to add that using the word toxic was something I considered not doing because it has become a sort of buzzword that people abuse, and terms like toxic masculinity are really just another source of toxicity masquerading as some type of compassion by people who are possessed by a certain political ideology. More on that another day, but yeah, I really want you to think of toxicity as anything genuinely harmful or poisonous, and please do not associate that term with the context it is often used as a political weapon. I also must confess that if I really reflect on any day of mine in the recent months, I can find plenty of moments where I engaged in so-called toxic behaviors. I have stayed up far too late. I have eaten food that is for all intents and purposes poison. I have used other substances that are definitely toxic at certain dosages, and I have radiated negative energy all over the place. But in addition to these parts of myself that don't really align with my ideals, I certainly have made it a point to try and engage in activities that are quite medicinal as well. For example, I took up meditation, and this has really changed my life. I structured my social media algorithms so that they mostly show me content revolving neuroscience, psychology, and mindfulness in general. I have even been running all around southern Colorado, meeting new people with bright eyes and ambition, trying to make some professional contacts so that I can hopefully one day add something meaningful to the scientific endeavor. Amongst these, there are some other things that I've done and tried to implement in my life that, in my estimation, are really positive. Really, the greatest source of medicine in my life comes from conversations with all sorts of family, friends, mentors, and strangers, where I just get to connect with another person's psyche, and we can drown out the world for the time being, whilst being completely immersed in the dialogue. We humans are a walking contradiction oftentimes, and that's really okay, as long as we look toward a better and brighter future whenever we can. Enough about me, however. I would love to now focus your attention back on yourself so that you can recognize the parts of you that are medicinal. And maybe this episode will motivate you to go out and spread some positivity into the world. I am also encouraging you to analyze parts of yourself that you don't particularly like, so that maybe you can formulate a plan to improve in these areas how you see fit. Are you a toxic or medicinal source of energy? Do the things you do and consume possess toxic or medicinal properties? And how does it make you feel when you come to terms with the structure of your life? All right. I hope this episode serves you well. I typed it up yesterday morning, likely because I woke up in a pretty good mood and really felt the itch to try and put my positive energy into something that others can take advantage of. May this Sunday bring you opportunities to extract some good moments from the day. If you found this to be useful, please like, share, leave a comment on whatever platform you're listening on, and tell everyone you know about my channel, which is growing slowly but surely. Last thing, my Instagram is namely Travi_Patty_Academy. Please go follow that for updates and other content revolving these topics. That's PRAVY_PATTY_ACADEMY. Thank you for your viewership of Text Appeal, Lessons on the Body, Mind, and Beyond.